My name's Sam and this is the Little Greenhouse Creates. Thank you for joining me today. And thank you for joining me for our final card in this week's stamp set of the week, Snowy Delights with its matching dies. It is Friday, so it is a funky fold. So this is the card we are going to create. When it's flat in the envelope, it's not going to look like much, but when you open it up, you have got this beautiful box shape and design. On the back you can write your sentiment and it stands like that. So in your envelope it can fold flat, so if you're doing it as 6x4, or if you want it to be slightly bigger so that they can see at least some of the design, you can do it in I think it's a 6x6. Yeah, it is. It's a 6x6. Look at that. Isn't it beautiful? So as I say, it's a true funky fold, so let's bring in our supplies. So what have I got? Okay, I have got a card base. I'm just going to check which one it is. Yes, so this is 4 inches by 5 3/4. This one is just a touch smaller. It's 3 7/8 by 5 3/4. Then I have 3 strips. I've only got one here, but we need 3 strips. They measure 1 3/4 by 8 inches, and we'll need 3 of those. And we will score those in a moment. I have then got 2 pieces of inside layers. They both measure 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. We have Designer Series paper. It's probably good to get yourself a 6x6 and then cut it down. So it needs to be 1 1/2 by 6 inches, and you want 3 strips, and then we're going to cut this into 4 squares. So you need 3 strips, each measuring 1 1/2 by 6 inches, and we will cut that down ourselves in a moment. Then I have got a window sheet, small piece, 1 inch by 5 1/2, and then I have a sentiment strip, which is 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4. Then you need some decoration. I'm going to be using this snowflake from the design, from the dies. And again, I'm using pecan pie. I've also got myself some pretty peacock for the sentiment. So let's begin. Where shall we start? Let's stamp first. Always like to stamp first. So I'm going to bring in my Merry Christmas. I've taken this from my stash because I didn't have one that is current that I wanted to use that is long enough for this sentiment. So I've got Merry Christmas. Straighten that up. And straight down, straight up. Okay, so there we have our Merry Christmas. Can now pop that aside. Put our our ink away. And we can start scoring. So with each of the 3 strips you've got of this, is it 3 strips? It is 3 strips, yes. 3 strips, we're going to score. So I'm going to bring in my scoreboard, pop it onto there, and I bring my bone folder, and I'm going to score it. So I need to score it at 1/2 inch. So make sure it's right up the end. You're going to do 1/2 inch there. Then you're going to score it at 2 1/4. 4 inches, 5 3/4, and 7 1/2. Okay, do that with all 3 pieces. When you've done all 3 pieces, you want to burnish your bone folders. Burnish with your bone folder the score lines. Now, with the outer edges, you want them to go both ways. So you need to burnish one way and the other, and then the others you can just score like so. Okay, and then turn it over the other way. Perfect. Now we're going to cut our designer series paper. Bring in my trimmer. And we're cutting this down to 1.5 by 1.5. So the strip is already 1.5. So we're going to do 4 of these. So you've got, let's get rid of this scorer. That's 1. 2. I'm going to put these in line. 1, 2. 3, 4. Now, when these go on to our piece of paper, we'd like them to follow so that when they go round the box, they follow and match up. Now, if you're doing, I mean, I've done my other ones, but this is the, when you cut all your papers up, my suggestion is that you number them. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you know they're going in the right place. Bring in your strip and then you can place them in order. The tag on your left hand side, I have numbered, so I've already got 1 and 2, so I'm going to make this one 3. Okay, so on the right hand side. Then I'm going to stick my designer series paper in. So that's 1. Perfect. And this one is 2. 3. And last but not least, 4. We're going to turn these now, so these two are going to match up. So turning it to the reverse side where you can't see the designer series paper, you're going to pop yourself a little slither of glue down the right hand side. Okay, not too much because you don't want it to squeeze out. So I'm aiming to get the edges to match up at the top and at the sides. And you'll see that this now turns into a box shape. Okay. Right, we now have all the pieces. We can begin putting the card together. So as you can see, I've got 1 up here, 2 and 3. Let's pop those aside. The bigger piece of the 2 bases, so this is, we're looking at the 4 by 5 3/4. We are going to adhere these onto these. So the one that's marked 1, you're going to turn it over and it's going to line up. Then you're going to bring in your third one, turn it over and line it up. And then you'll do exactly the same with the second one and pop it in the middle. So let's just attach them with glue. So the glue is going on the one where you have marked the number. So I'm going to pop it on at the top. Don't want it dead at the top because it needs to have some space, but I need it to be lined up with my base card. Okay, so that's evenly lined up with the base. If you want to, you can give it a squidge. Give it a little, there we go. Perfect, okay. Then you're going to do the same with number 3. So that's your 3 line. Pop your glue down. Turn it over. Bring it over. Dogs are happy this morning. Try that again. So you can line it over, up, stick it down with the glue, make sure it is lined up. Now, what you'll find is that one probably wasn't scored enough. So I'm just going to bring in the bone folder and push it a bit more, just so that it is scored, because obviously we need it to move around. Yeah, that's doing it. Let's do that one to be on the side. Okay. And then we can now put in number 2. So again, the glue going down the 2 side, and it can go into the middle. So evenly spaced between top and bottom. Let's try it the right way round and we'll be okay. Were you holding your breath in when you saw me stick it round the wrong way? That would have made me cry, wouldn't it? Right, okay, so let's make sure that is, yep, fold it over. Let's make sure it's up to the top. There we go. Okay, and we're now happy. We can run the bone folder down the 3 edges. So that it doesn't look ugly, we're now going to bring in our 3 3/4 by 5.5 inch. 3 7/8, I apologize, by 5 3/4. And that's just going to fit into there. So you need to cover the base in your glue. So make sure you get some on the edges, and then you can go all the way around. I find it helps if you lift up your side and then slip it in, because obviously what you need to do is for these to fold over on the card, but I don't want it pushing it out too far. Let's make sure I've got that stuck in place. There we go. And let's bring that up. Perfect. Okay, so we're looking good now. So the next thing to do is to stick our 2 sheets on. So I have got this piece here. I'm going to attach with my Stampin' Seal. So these are the matte layers, which are 3 3/4 by 5.5. So that will then go on here. And what I'm trying to do is line it up with the Designer Series paper here and at the bottom. Okay, now we can turn it over and we can do the same with this one. It's a cold but dry day here today, and so the dogs are taking full advantage of playing in the garden, but that doesn't stop them barking at the smallest of things, a bird flying past, a neighbour coming out to hang their washing up, any of those things. There we go. Right, so the thing we need to do now is to get our piece of window sheet. I'm going to turn that sideways like so, and you're going to bring yourself in some tear and tape. What you're aiming to do is the first piece of tear and tape is going to go at the top, and then the second piece at the bottom. So you don't need to line it up for that, but you can. I'm just going to make sure it's there. I'm going to put it at the top like so, and do the same at the bottom. There we go. What we do need to make sure, though, is that it lines up with the middle. I'm just going to cut this bit off because I don't want it sticking to the paper. She says throwing it across the floor. There we go. Right. What we do need, as I said, is a piece that goes slap bang in the middle. So let's do that. You could, and I'm going to pop it that way. And then that way it will fit straight across onto there. Now, I just want to double check. Yes. When you're laying it down, there we go. You're going to take off the backing of the tear and tape. Yeah, one. Now, what this is going to do, this is going to enable you to move all 3 boxes at the same time. So it's this one. So it's the square. If it's laid flat like this, it's the square that's furthest away from the base. So I'm going to turn it round. Excuse me. I'm just going to bend these slightly so that I can slide them through. So you're going to slide it through the first one, slide it through the second one, and then slide it through the third. Grabbing it, you need to bring it right up to the edge of the squares. It's getting stuck here, so there we go. Right. So we're aiming for it to come right up to the edge. It's up as far as it can go. Let's make sure. So the window sheet is all the way up to here, and then that means that when you move your box, they will move together rather than before where it was only moving one at a time. So now again we need to do a bit of burnishing. So bend it and score. Bring the next one over and bend it. Okay, you can then do it the other way around. You're going to bend this side, and then you're going to bend this side. Okay, so now we have our 4 boxes. So that literally is the card created. Okay, but what I want to do is I'm going to put something on here. So I'm going to use the largest die from the dies, cut out a snowflake. So as you can see, I've already done that. Let's push it through. There we go. Come on, let's get you through. If you've got one of those little brushes, you could brush it through. There we go. And you just ease it out. So that's the die. And then you're just going to push out the bits you don't need. So they don't need that bit, or 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 the bit in the middle. Right, we can get rid of those. Now these will go onto your paper here. You can have, or you can choose to put glue all the way around, or you can put glue dots on these points. I'm going to use glue dots. I'm going to put one on there. You get 2, 3. Oops, it's escaping. Come back. Thank you. 4, 5, 6. Okay. I feel that there is only one way to put that in, because if you have it that way, it pops out over the side. You could, it just about works. The option is with you, but I'm actually going to turn it this way. And what I'm hoping to do is to line this section up with this section, so I know that it's roughly halfway. Now, take the backings off my glue dots. Come on. There we go. Turn that over. Again, make sure I've got this lined up. I'm going to hold it with my finger in the middle because there's no glue dots there. Am I happy with the way it's lying? I am. And I'm just going to press down all 6 glue dots. We can then bring in our sentiment, which is the Merry Christmas. And I'm going to pop that up on dimensionals. Now, obviously, you don't have to have such a large sentiment if you don't wish, but it's the one I wanted to use for this. You could use a much smaller one so that it only fills in the middle. Obviously, it's your card and your design. Right, let's pop that in the middle again. And we have created today's Funky Fold. Thank you very much for joining me. So, as I said, it will line flat in a 6x4 envelope, or if you want to, you can lay it like that, which is 6x6. And there's the first one, and she says, where's the other one? And there's the other one we created. So thank you ever so much for joining me this week. I hope you like this bundle as much as I have. Don't forget, we are back next week. It is our last week, so do join us. It's the last 5 projects, and I hope to catch up with you then. Have a lovely weekend. Take care. Bye.